Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Pat. So I realize this is the first session just after that sumptuous lunch. I hope we manage to wake up your minds with this interesting panel. As the title suggests, we're here to assess in the next half hour or so how we can use data analytics and business intelligence to measure the impact of our digital transformation efforts. In 2016, McKinsey famously reported that 84% of digital transformation efforts have failed or are failing. In 2020, BGC said, oh, it's now just 70%. And we don't have yet the report card for a post-pandemic world, but we're trying to understand through this session how which measures are being used to assess these. So Simon, Sairam, Prerit, and Han Leong are experienced transformation strategists and technologists all. I will leave you gentlemen to briefly say a few words about what you do in your respective companies.
Thanks, Patricia. So my name is Simon Long. I am the Director of Technology Transformation and Strategy at CBRE Asia Pacific. I look after our clients who are a large range of property engagement experts. So we look after all of their technology transformation. So that's looking at smart offices and smart buildings and all of the projects that go along with that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Prerit here. I'm the head of DHL Data and Analytics. Well, the title is a bit outdated on the slide, but yeah, we just moved teams. I'm responsible for internal and external engagements within DHL. So a lot of it focuses on supply chain optimization, transformation using AI, as well as how we can make our supply chains greener.
Hi, everyone. I work in data science at Amex. So I lead teams across Singapore and India, essentially working on delivering data science solutions to business problems. So researching on newer technologies to make our models better, doing machine learning research, right, and productionalizing these models to get value from them. Yeah.
So I'm Han Leong. I head the data science and AI team in IHES. We are the National Health Tech Agency for Singapore. So we serve the public hospital as well as the Ministry of Health. So analytics have been one of the enabler where we can see productivity and insights gained for the clinicians.
Thank you. So let's jump right in and talk about, paint a picture of what a successful digital transformation initiative looks like. What would be your top 3 levers and how would you monitor and measure success? Simon, you want to start in this?
Thank you. Digital transformation as a topic is a very interesting one to start off with, because chances are everybody in this room has done a digital transformation exercise, because if you are working with your uncle to get him to use an iPad instead of reading the newspaper, that's a digital transformation initiative, right? So you just need to think of that. But that leads nicely into thinking about what the successful outcomes would be. And really, there are 3 that you want to look at. The first of which is improved experience. Now, a digital transformation exercise could be how your business engages with the market. So that could be external facing, that could be increased customer experience and satisfaction. But it could also be an internal transformation where you're looking at your own systems, your own platforms. So in which case it's going to be the experience of your users, your staff, the people who are using that. So that's the first one. The second one you want to really look at is efficiency. Can you do something in a more efficient manner? So that's, can we do things faster with less steps, less effort? And then the third one that we try and look at is, it's always the return on investment side of things. So that's, again, if you're looking back at, is it something, an internal project? Are we paying less for it, or are we getting more for the same money or slightly more? If you are externally transforming something, that's looking like an increased revenue in the market, an increased market share. And really you want to hit 2 out of those 3 objectives, but you always want to be mindful, because yes, if we go and make more money and it is more efficient, but it is a horrible experience, then it's not going to be a success story. So look at 2 of them, but bear all 3 facts in mind is what I would say.
Thank you, Simon. Sairam, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, sure. So I echo with Simon's thoughts on it. Right. So at the end of the day, so I think transformation initiatives need to be tied to an end goal, right? Maybe you want to change the operating model. Firm wants to say change the way they talk to customers. They want to change their data-backed decision-making process, or they want to operate a process, right? It could be internal or external. But I think at the end of the day, so when you look at success, you need to tie it back to what you set out to do in the first place. Right? I think we should not measure the success of transformation for transformation's sake. Right? So at the end of the day, how well were you able to improve that process, right? And what was the impact? And the other thing I would probably add is you also need to be mindful of the time frame. Right? Some of these initiatives take time to yield results. So you need to have a long-term view, right? And you need to be mindful of what is the time frame that you're looking at for results to manifest.
Thank you. If I'm to summarize, you need to have a clear goal that informs strategy and the time frame implementation that can effectively lead to good experiences, good ROI, of course, and a frictionless, efficient system. Let me ask you about how businesses are effectively leveraging data analytics and AI, artificial intelligence, to accelerate innovation. So let's look at the innovation aspect of digital transformation. How are there any practical use cases that you can share that exhibits such transformation and innovation? Maybe Sairam, you can start again.
Yeah, sure. So I think we should look at this with the lens of an industry. So I think different industries are at different stages of adoption and different stages of maturity, right? So if I take the example of credit cards or banking, I think companies were doing data analytics long before AI/ML became the buzzword, right? And they were touching different points of customer life cycle. Right from who you market to who you send that offer to whether or not you approve a customer for a credit card, or then how much credit to extend to. So I think there are a lot of use cases, and companies have seen a lot of success. And then with the newer technologies, so companies have also adopted and enhanced their processes. But say some other industries like CPG were probably slightly late to the party. They were late in adopting. But they've also experienced a rapid speed in adoption recently, right? So, yeah. What do others think?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good insight from the finance industry. Han Leong, how does healthcare?
So probably I want to add on more to that one. Healthcare is probably one of the early adopters for AI as well as digitization. I think there's a good reason for that as well, because of 2 things. One is we are facing aging population in many of the developed countries, as well as, of course, recently is the COVID. So some of the practical example I want to share, right, is one of the project that I'm deeply involved in is to use machine learning or AI to, based on the chest X-ray image, to pronounce whether the patient is going to face mortality risk or ICU risk, or are they okay and can be put in normal wards. So with all this, right, actually the resource can be better optimized. As Perry and Simon have mentioned as well, it's about efficiency. Making AI to be a companion for the user itself would be the key crux of it, because not everyone will want to be amazed by the technology, but they definitely want to be more efficient in the way they do. They want to do more with the same and able to get insights of the things itself. So I guess that's one good cases. And another cases is about readmission prediction. That is one of the golden thing in the healthcare as well, because we are facing resource crunch in healthcare. There's always a need to be more targeted in how we apply the healthcare resources to the patient. And that's probably the two use cases that I can think of. Yeah.
Thank you. Prerit, any examples from DHL?
Oh yeah, quite a few. So I will tackle the supply chain, right? Almost every company that exists on the planet have some sort of a supply chain. And just looking at the use cases, so you can talk about optimizing your inventory. You can talk about demand forecasting. So if you don't know what's going to be the demand, how do we then build for it? You're talking about risk management, resilience as well. So if the suppliers are in a particular country which is locked down, we faced it a lot, do we have another source of suppliers where we can source things from and make sure that the supply chains don't get impacted? If it comes to pure logistics, routing optimization, a very basic thing, we always use Google Maps, but let's add the complexity that if a delivery van is outside, there are live order pickups being added to whenever you make a move. So how do you optimize these live inputs coming in for pickups as well as the planned deliveries ahead? So routing optimization is one thing. Sustainability, on the sustainability side on the supply chain, how can we make them greener? If you ship a lot with air freight, that's a huge environmental footprint. How do you then, is it possible to switch it to ocean? Is it possible to switch it to road, rail? Are there any other modes to explore? Order consolidation, can you send out one truck instead of sending out 3 trucks? And one more thing is the complexity, right? The complexity sits in any supply chain. We have an ERP system, which is managing everything. We have warehouse management systems, if you do warehousing. We have transport management systems. We have material resource planning system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we are talking about multiple systems and then taking data from it and then on all these use cases. So definitely plenty of use cases at different maturity levels. But yeah, just to give a highlight of the logistics and supply chain industry.
Thank you. Those are excellent examples of successful use cases. Let's now talk about the challenges. And I'd like to focus in particular. Earlier, you've heard about the issue of a lot of these tools and platforms not actually being used by employees. This is an issue. They say that as much as 60% of data platforms are underutilized. What do your respective organizations do to make everyone data informed, from actually feeding the system with the right data on the one hand, and actually making it a habit to always use these tools to inform their day-to-day decisions? Anyone?
Yeah, I can talk a bit to that. It's a common challenge that you find. Yes, you've got a combination of, as you're saying, McKinsey, 80% of digital transformation projects failed, and then 60% are underutilized. Well, if you think about that, 80% failed, and then out of the 20% that were successful, 60% then don't get used.
Report card isn't so good.
And I think it steps back to some of the points that we were all sort of saying before, is having those clear outcomes. I honestly find through the years that I've been doing this that a lot of technology transformation projects happen because it's expected. This platform is going old or obsolete. We are now replacing it. But nobody stops at that point and says, why? Why are we replacing this? Well, we had it before. Yeah, but what is it actually doing? Who is actually using it? Why should we take a look at this right now? That's a good question. It turns out that actually this platform has very little utilization. Bin it, right? Take it off the table. But what needs to happen is I think we just get in the flow of my phone is broken, I need a new one. Right, and it's the same in the industry with our businesses and our technologies. We need to take a pause and say, right, my phone is broken, but what do I use it the most for? Is it taking pictures? Then I need a good camera. Is it that I actually don't want a smartphone? I want to distance myself a little bit and maybe have something that's not a smartphone, so I get more downtime. Okay, we know what to do, but there's a clear direction, and that allows you to then assess the technology based on what's right for your organization to go forward.
It's agile triage, or, yeah. Thoughts?
No, I think Simon said something that I've repeated multiple times. We should always know about the how before the why. So I think sometimes a lot of emphasis is on the technology. Okay, this new shiny tool is out there, let's use it. But I think if we don't define the business problems and what we are out to achieve, I think that's number one cause for transformation failures. The other thing is also unrealistic expectations. So if I go out and start building a model to predict the next earthquake, I don't think I'm going to succeed. But if I build a model where I can assess what happens if an earthquake hits a particular country, I will have more success there. Because then I can figure out what gets disrupted in my supply chain, yada, 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 and I can figure out what the impact would be. But predicting an earthquake, that's an unrealistic expectation. Then I would also say that looking at who's the decision maker, I think in any project or any transformation, defining who the decision maker is becomes very important. Because if the decision maker's objectives are not aligned to the bigger objectives of the company or the transformation, then that is an issue. If my objective is just to roll out this technology, then probably I'll meet my goal, but that does not mean that the transformation is successful. And we also have to have an appetite for risks, I think. Yeah. In any transformation project, it can't be a case where we always have to succeed. And I would also say that this is closely tied to change management as well, right? Preparing people that we are going to have this transformation, there are risks involved, and hence clearly communicating to the team and to folks involved that there's a change coming. We have to figure out how this change impacts all of us. Simple example to you guys. In any company, there's a planning manager. Planning manager doesn't want things to run out of stock at a store. So they want to hold on to more inventory maybe. From their perspective, that's a win because no order will be missed. But then if I'm a warehouse manager or an inventory manager, you are adding on storage costs to me. My KPI is to reduce cost, but my planning manager's KPI is to not miss an order. And there is a conflict. But in any transformation, in any big project, we have to figure out what's a win-win for the organization. Maybe a team takes a hit in this case. And that's where defining these business objectives, defining this change management and risks becomes really important.
Absolutely. So, are there any other challenges apart from this major issue, of course? Han Leong, are there any other blockers to successful implementations?
I always find myself very thankful in healthcare because I work with very smart people and they can understand AI solution, machine learning or anything very quickly. But they are always my challenges on implementing AI. Because from the doctor perspective, right, they cannot really take the AI advice or the direction of AI if they don't understand it. They must fully understand it because they are accountable to the patient. And from that perspective, I respect that. And convincing them is not the easy task. I guess that is the challenge I face. And usually how I do it is with explainable AI, try to break down the thing and show them why they derive into such information. But that's also not enough. There's also things like we need to do post-validation, iron out all the operation issue because they are really busy people. they cannot stop there and open another AI application for their diagnosis, and we have to fit into the workflow. So to sum up, I guess the people, how we can convince everybody to onboard with the AI is one of the challenges I constantly face. And on a good faith, we are always trying to do it in the most efficient manner, on either doing design thinking or agile approach and the development, and not at the end of the day then throw to the doctors or the nurses that this is the AI solution and you are supposed to use that. Yeah.
Thank you, Han Yong. Earlier, Prarit, you described the situation where a rapid, agile response to address an issue was required. And lately, they have been describing digital transformation as a service, as a proposition to make such agile, solution-led solutioning possible. My next question is, are you implementing such frameworks, and what, if not, what other infrastructures are you working on that you're currently exploring? Sairam and Parit, any of you can address this.
Yeah, so let me take a stab at that. So I would say when we talk about infrastructure, there's no one-fit-all solution, right? So I think it depends really on who you are and the kind of transformation initiative that you're trying to drive and what kind of solutions you already have, right? So it's not the case that if you have the best infra out in the market, you're going to succeed, right? I would say it's what matters more is are you able to derive the best value from the infra that you have, right? Is your infrastructure aligned to support critical business needs? So can you make sure that your infra is operating efficiently and supporting the problems that you want solved, right? Just like to maybe draw inspiration from one of the panels that happened earlier today on future-proofing the data strategy, right? So I think a gentleman from the insurance sector, Mr. Harish, was talking about how in their company they had built in a lot of solutions layer by layer, right? And then we also had Mr. Andreas talk about how they had built out things using more open source, right? So I think it also depends on what is it that you want, right? So maybe if you're a big player looking to transform a process or a part of a process, you'd want a plug-and-play solution, right? You'd want something that can seamlessly integrate with your existing infra. But if you're a player who doesn't want, say, a huge footprint of on-prem infra, maybe you want cloud, right? So it depends on what you're really trying to do. But efficiency and alignment is also the key.
Thank you, Sairam. Simon or Prerit, any emerging trends that you're also exploring?
Well, I think just touching on the as-a-service question that you mentioned there, everything now is as a service, right? Entertainment as a service.
I was going to say, aren't the big fours doing the
transformation as a service is that's consultancy, right? Entertainment as a service, that's your Netflix and your YouTube, right? Everything we do now is being rebadged as a service. But what that's doing is creating an interesting question that impacts the infrastructure perspective that you mentioned, right? So in our rush to do things potentially quicker, more cost effectively, we look to service-based models, which is a big shift from I spend a lot of capital to I want that as an OpEx model. I want operating expenditure. I want you to do it for me. But what we find that's really interesting, specifically with AI and everything that we're coming into now, is the challenges around data and information. Is that when that has stuck in our minds that if we suddenly make that as a service, ooh, security, yeah, we need to look at that, right? And when we don't know the answer to that, that raises an interesting infrastructure element that we're seeing now, which is, I don't know if I can run this as a service because I don't have those answers to what would happen if my data is in the cloud or on a platform. So I'm going to build it myself, and I'm going to put this in my own data center, and I'm going to buy the stuff, and I'm going to do it myself where I know it's safe and sound. Now, this sounds maybe counterproductive to the world that we're going, but those of us who are old enough to remember Citrix, right? That these patterns repeat. So I think what we will see as a result of this is until we are very clear and we become more aware of security and privacy around data and how we handle that more effectively in our organizations, what we will see is a step change to some more on-premise systems to get around that issue quickly, to allow us to embrace the new technology, to leapfrog, and then you'll probably see a transformation to that in the cloud. So that is a trend that we are beginning to see right now, and I think you will continue to see for those reasons.
Consolidation. Yes, Prerit, please add your thoughts.
I guess if I say Gen AI, it will be too much of a cliche, right? So, no, but on a serious note, I think data mesh is a technology. As a technology, it's pretty interesting. Because I think a lot of organizations still suffer with the example that I gave, conflicting KPIs, conflicting success. If you're able to localize the data and you're able to build it on a use case by use case, I'm sure every big organization, every couple of years, they decide on centralizing all the data into one data lake and then trying to build out common data models. So all the departments can have all their reports serviced through this. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it does not. A lot of times it does not. So that's where I think data mesh comes in. I think it's a particular technology I'm really interested in. I think having it localized, still having a single source of truth, but having localized use cases based. Gen AI, it's obviously interesting. Large language models are interesting. We have to see, we always have to take it with a pinch of salt, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And I think it also shows a transformation in the way that AI is being offered now. Earlier, AI was targeted towards engineers, software engineers, developers, and they were the ones consuming it. And then we were putting our own spin on it, we were making sense out of it, and then offering it to the end customer. Now, end customers have access to it. So that's the main AI transformation that has happened in the last few years. What has AI changed? Large language models existed. We were doing this 5 years ago, but now the user is different. The user experience is different. And so I think that's a very interesting area for me.
I like the way you described this process with the openness to it working and not. And really, we talked about data and technology earlier, and now I want to talk about culture related to that approach, to that mindset. How are you able to encourage this experimental, it might work, it might not work culture in your respective organizations?
I can take a stab at it, right? So I think one of the things that's key is, again, I'm just giving this as an example, not an endorsement, right? Microsoft Power BI is not that costly. And I think everybody should use it, right? Even if you're doing some personal tabulation, go ahead and use it. So I think encouraging questions, that forms the foundation of it. Should only data analysts and BI engineers use Power BI? Absolutely not. Everybody in the organization should use some sort of a visualization tool and go ahead and try it, even for their personal work if it helps. So I think allowing employees to ask those questions, also understanding the risks at the same time, right? So it's a whole change management journey. I think from a culture perspective, data literacy is absolutely important. And when I say data literacy, it doesn't mean just the basic things, right? But how to implement or how to get insights out of it. Not knowing that, not just knowing that there are these many types of data types, et cetera, but how do you derive insights from it? So, yeah.
And can the insights even be put back into the system so that the learnings are shared beyond your division? So I'm mindful of the time, but before we end this session, it's been really interesting. I'd like to ask each of you to, in the lightning round, give in a word or two a key takeaway or phrase that your audience can leave with when it comes to using AI and data for measuring the impact of digital transformation. Han Leong, let's start with you.
So probably I would wait. Till now I come to believe that AI cannot take the center stage. To raise the AI kit, it actually have to a village of people to bring it up itself. So the short phrase I am thinking of is a quote. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So in healthcare, we always go together to make it sustainable.
Yeah, I think to summarize, I'd probably say, like with the newer technologies, they've expanded what is possible. So the possibilities are limitless now. But I think what's important is to be focused, to measure outcomes, but again be pragmatic and also ensure alignment. Right? Be clear about what you want. Yeah, that would be my key message.
Yeah, I think AI should also stand for actionable insights. So
I would say go and play with it in a safe environment. It's going to be your new best friend, but just like any initial friendship, you don't want to overshare. You want to get used
Boundaries.
to it. Yeah, you want to set some boundaries, but you do want to get out there and educate yourself and educate others towards its potential so that you can fully embrace it in a safe and useful way.
Thank you so much. Let's give our panel another round of applause. That was, I hope you found that as interesting as I did. Thank you. Would you have any questions, any additional questions for our panel?
That's right. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, that gentleman right across over there. Just to let you know, we can make way for, I think we should have enough time for perhaps 2 or 3 questions, although it has been very, very insightful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can we give the lovely people a big warm round of applause as well? Our panel discussion together, our moderator, ladies and gentlemen, who are here together with us. All right.
Yeah, thank you, panelists. My question is to Han Leong. Question on healthcare. My name is Shiva. I run a venture builder. I'm also an adjunct faculty. So we have a health tech client. They are looking to enter Singapore. They are in the field of AI and in a field called multi-omics, where they are improving your human health. I hope as a healthcare professional, you understand the term multi-omics. And one of the challenges they are facing is to use and collect data from hospitals, insurers, patients who are high net worth individuals. This is actually a real case. And the challenge we are facing is of privacy. A related question is one of my friends is a Silicon Valley founder. I lived there for a long time. He's founded a company which actually uses privacy as an API. In other words, your data can be private, but you can still anonymize it and share it. So in the healthcare context, especially in what you've seen, Han Leong, how can some of the healthcare information be unlocked, yet protecting privacy? That is my question. Can it be a privacy API? Can it be anonymized? Is there a way to do it? Because we are finding a huge challenge to solve this problem.
Thank you very much for the question. I guess you're right. I mean, as a community, as an AI ecosystem, there's many much more stakeholder or technology partner we can tap beyond what we have here. And data sharing or ability to generate insights from the data is one of the key importance. And of course, having said that, as you also point out, is to mindful of the privacy of the patient itself. There's technology, as you mentioned, federated learning, synthetic data, all these are meant to be created to ease the challenge or adhere to the governance for data sharing to generate the AI solution. But I think another perspective we should look at is that how can we get the information to the people that is correct, the right hand of the people, and not the malicious folks who want to abuse the data itself. Of course, from that perspective, right, will be the process. There are data sharing framework that have been put in place and formalized. So for legit party who is wanting to create the things for the good of healthcare within the privacy consideration, definitely can approach the relevant authority, at least in Singapore, to request for the data and do further analysis on that. So that is one of the part that we have here. Thank you.
Yes, I think we have time for one last question.
Hi, thank you. That was an interesting talk, but I would like to really touch upon a point that some of you mentioned on right through the session, and that is to do with change management or adoption. Hanleong, you mentioned about how you work with doctors. I think Prerit, you mentioned about how change management is important. Simon, you also touched upon it in a way. Could you give us some examples of how you really drive data literacy and adoption in your organization? Because everybody uses data. Today I would be surprised if any organization says that they don't really rely on data. But it's really about how you go deep into the organization and how do you really unlock the true value that we all talk about all the time. Could you shed some light on some of the things that you really do today? That would be a good insight.
I'd be happy to say it's a key challenge that we face. So if you were looking at the operation of a company in a building, right, we have to talk about every department. And we get people like, it's touching on the last question, HR will say all of our data is confidential, right? Okay, so if I anonymize the data and just ask for departments, is that, no, right? So what it involves across the organization is first getting an understanding about a data foundation. And the best way that we say to this is you need to understand the difference between data and information, right? And they're actually two very different concepts. So it's educating people around that, right? Data, a list of salaries. Okay, that's how much people are being paid across the organization. Names match to that, that becomes information, right? And at that point, it has privacy. Okay, I get that. The third context that we say after that is after you've got data and information, you've got insights. Now, somebody in HR will be able to give you very good insights into the data that they have, but if you give them the facility information about how much electricity the building is using, they're not going to be able to give you any insights. So if you have a common framework and you can describe it in a way that everybody in the organization can understand how data, information, and insights relates to them, and you will find that certain people really get into this, and they're going to become your data stakeholders. And you want one from, a couple from each department to work as a working committee under typically somebody like a CDO. And that immediately will then help you to test initiatives, to test understanding, to test concepts, and push that out as a general framework. And then from understanding that, you can understand the level of change that's required. Because if that's a small group, it's going to be very difficult. But if it's a large group, then the change isn't going to be that difficult to implement. And that, again, that is a general framework that will work across multiple organizations.
Just to add on to that as well, some things that we have done as an organization, like I said, some trainings for sure. The other things we've done is we've devised a course which is not technical, but it talks about how do you derive value from data science. And we trialed it with senior managers who are not necessarily, who are from operations or from commercial backgrounds, but just talking to them, telling them, don't be scared of machine learning, this is what it means, and also talking about it from a value generation perspective, not that feed it A and it will give you out, but talking about some of the technicalities, but also aiming at what they can derive from it. So that has worked for us quite a lot. We've also kind of, in different departments and teams, there are folks who have, their technical role is not data analysts, but they do that. They are the data experts within those smaller teams, and then having a community as such. So that has helped us quite a lot in terms of how we push it through. Obviously, it's a large, massive organization, but I think having those custom courses and not talking about technical jargons, I think that's important for technical folks, but how do I use it? So those are some of the things that we've done.
Let's give a big hand, of course, to, first of all, Technology Strategy Transformation, CBRE, and of course, right here we have Sairam as well, Subramanian, Director for Singapore